My name is David Rosenthal, and I had the good fortune to have actually two careers. One for 33 years in the field of public social services, and a 12-year career in law enforcement following that. Interesting, I think, that I served in Korea for 13 months and saw the world's most abject poverty amongst people. And it sort of started me thinking along the lines of I've got to do something to be of help. So I chose a helping profession and started off for the County of Westchester, which is civil service, as a junior caseworker. That's the bottom of the ladder that you can start at, and worked my way up to where when I left 32 years later, I was the Assistant Commissioner of Social Services for Westchester County. My second career began after that, after I retired, as a mounted deputy sheriff, law enforcement, which put me still in the position of helping people, but from a much different perspective. Well, I'm not sure that I realized it or the sheriff did. I had a horse. I've been into horses since I was 13. And I had a horse that was stabled where the sheriff's mounted unit had their horses. And the sheriff was always poking at me to come and go to the police academy and become one of his deputies on horseback. Finally, when I retired, age 55, I decided it was time for me to go to the police academy. And so I did, and I was successful for that 6 months, and then had the pleasure of serving 12 years thereafter. It seems to me, looking back on my careers, that you have to have an absolute belief in the goodness of people. And what you're trying to do in the helping professions is to bring out and maximize that goodness to the fullest extent possible. When I began as a junior caseworker, you needed a bachelor's degree from a recognized university. As I progressed, I wound up having a master's degree in social work and a master's degree in public administration. Seeing people succeed who otherwise would not have. I think one of the biggest challenges is the need to have total self-control at all times, and that goes for both fields. There is no need to have to ensure success of someone in the social services field. What you need to do is to give them the opportunity to succeed, and with that also the opportunity to fail, but without them having any support if they do fail, so that you become their support. I think the major requirement is that you have to have an honest belief in helping people. Not that you know more than they do, but that you can learn, and through life experiences, you can add a dimension to their life that otherwise would go unrecognized. Well, it was. Typical workday was totally different. When I was in Department of Social Services, the workday was 9 to 5 days a week. When I moved into the field of law enforcement as a mounted deputy sheriff, my workday was from 6 o'clock in the evening till 2 in the morning on horseback, 4 days a week, 4 nights a week, excuse me. I would say on average, between the two jobs, the average would have been somewhere around 40 hours a week. Oh, well, the field, I think, has faded somewhat into the background in terms of civil servants, but is more needed than ever with the standard of living escalating as it has. In the field of law enforcement, Equally, people need to be safe and feel secure. And one of the things that I felt was that my presence as a law enforcement officer on horseback gave them the added confidence to believe that they could just enjoy their lives. I think it will depend upon the distribution of wealth in this country. If people, the cost, for instance, of housing in our area escalates so much that people are having to share housing at a young age rather than being able to afford their own, I think that the level of need for success will become all-encompassing for the future generations, but in a different way than was my experience. It will be more in the area of skill in navigating the system and using their mental capacities rather than physical skills that have been the watermark of people in this country for, I guess, 100 years. I smile when I heard that. I began as a junior caseworker at $4,500 a year. I have to tell you, I left as assistant commissioner at somewhat close to $100,000 a year. In terms of my work as a mounted police officer, we were paid on an hourly basis, and it was comparable to other fields of law enforcement, somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 an hour. Well, the first job, that in social services, the negatives were having to experience people's failure with them, trying to be uplifting to them at the same time. That was very difficult to endure, and you had to keep a level head about yourself. In my second career, that in law enforcement, the hardest part was feeling, no, I'm going to change my answer. The feeling that you were always safe with your horse, who was an extension of you as a person, and not realizing the dangers that you were in from traffic, nighttime, drunkenness, people who are conducting themselves in a bad way, and having to deal with all of that. In the field of civil service, if you behave yourself appropriately and are fairly good at taking exams, there very seldom is a layoff. They're always looking for new people to enter the field. In the area of law enforcement, because I was in a specialized branch, you had to have some acumen at using a horse, riding, as well as a full litany of police skills. If you have a master's degree in social work or public administration, it transitions itself into numerous fields in the private sector. But it is necessary, I believe, that you get yourself a master's degree in whichever field you're in. As far as the police work that we did, just being able to survive the police academy for 6 months is what you basically need. And as you move up the ladder in law enforcement, your educational background becomes an additional factor added to your self-image. Good question. In the field of social service, social work that I did, I try to minimize my office desk time and maximize my time out in the field actually working with clients, which is difficult to do because being a civil servant, there is endless paperwork or computer entries today that have to be made. In the field of law enforcement that I was in, You find yourself spending most of your time in preparation. If you work 8 hours, you're spending another 4 or 5 hours in terms of preparation and maintenance of skills. I think what I could say is that as a young person in today's world, if you have the inclination to really be of help to people, go with it. There's so many people going into fields that are non-human involvements, computer, high tech, tech, low tech, that the ability to relate to another person and be of help is a tremendously rewarding experience.